and in public session. And just let anyone know in attendance that people in the public gallery can use mobile devices through a Wi-Fi connection. All devices must be muted, and they cannot take recordings or photographs. Today the committee will receive evidence from the Department for Infrastructure on its submission for the December monitoring round. Consider the Department for Infrastructure's public consultation on the Road Noise Action Plan. Consider responses in relation to the Water Sustainable Drainage and Flood Management Bill. And consider one statutory rule and one proposal for a statutory rule that is subject to Assembly procedure, and two proposals for statutory rules that are not subject to Assembly procedure. I'll just move straight to item 1 then in terms of apologies. We have apologies from Peter McReynolds and Stephen Dunn. Are there any other apologies members are aware of? Okay, that's a no. Item 2 are declarations of interest. Just to remind members that they are obliged to declare any relevant financial or other interest which might reasonably be thought of by others to influence their approach on the matter under consideration. Does anyone have any interest they wish to declare? Okay, that takes us to item 3, which is Chair's business. We have been sort of thinking and chatting a little bit about carrying out some reviews with the time that we have left in the mandate. Fairly discrete reviews with certainly from my perspective, I think a successful outcome of that would be an agreed committee motion by the committee as terms of output. I suppose the one that sort of sticks out in my mind, but I'm happy to take views of other committee members, of course, is planning and looking at how on earth we speed up our planning process in Northern Ireland, which runs consistently behind either the rest of the UK or the Republic. But I'll pause there for a second and see if members, I'm also conscious that when we initially talked about this, we did consider utilities and also sort of, car parks and car parking charges, but certainly at the forefront of my mind and the thing that will have the largest possible impact would be planning, but I'm happy to take any other views on it. Cathal, is that you indicating or choking on a scone? Certainly one of the two.
Not just yet, Jerry. I don't mind the planning. Obviously it's the subject first, but where do we go with it in terms of the autonomy of councils and what we can do ourselves? I certainly don't mind having a debate. It's what we get out of it ourselves, So whatever the scope that is, I'm happy enough to have a conversation about planning all day, any day. It's our use of as a committee is the first thing, but if we have a proper scope and a proper reference, and we're getting something like 100%, so let's tear it up that way. That's all.
Yeah.
I don't have an issue.
In terms of my thoughts on it, I think we probably could fit in two. It certainly seems from the department's core to us that the rail and transport thing looks unlikely to proceed. So obviously we're in the middle of SUDS. I think we could probably carry out a couple of these with the time that we have left. I'd want them to be time bounded. I've seen plenty of what they might call inquiries just expand uncontrollably, like something out of Star Trek. So I was thinking really 2 months, 8 weeks on this. In terms of, Kyle, your question, the points you make are sound in terms of, having clear terms of reference and clear outcome. I think if we were able, and I appreciate that some members of the committee who have been here for a while, I've probably considered these things in the past, but as I referenced, I'm a newbie. Just the fact that our planning system seems to take so long, and that is hampering infrastructure in Northern Ireland. It just is. And if we can find some points of pressure within that system that we can draw out not only in the public domain, but also have some agreement as to what could be done around it, I think that would be good VFM for this committee. But if you know, look, if I'm also conscious, I want to try and tie this one a little bit today in terms of the committee that the clerking team can bring something back next week for a level of agreement. It's not my issue, you know. I'm just chairing this. You know, it's a committee decision as to what we do, obviously, but also then to give them the scope over recess as we move into, you know, first, second week January, to actually have some stuff prepared on this and use, you know, good use of their time in using that period. So if members are content, could I seek some level of agreement from committee? I've got down here, request an update from the department on the transformation fund project. That's the money they got for essentially for trying to speed up planning. So get some update on that as to where the department are and what they're using transformation fund monies to do, and then also to commission RAISE to carry out comparative research on planning processes and timescales. I would suggest that is carried out within other regions of the UK and also the South. Yeah.
Yes, Chair.
Deputy Chair?
No, just as they're happy with that. I mean, as Cathal says, I think we've had 2 or 3 debates since the Monday came round and plan. Individual parties have brought them forward, but they've always been constructive. And we are probably a year on since the last one. I think some of the points, particularly around local councils, still not having their local development plans produced, even though many of them were due by 2019. Like, we're all due by 2019 as a deadline. We're 6 years on from that. I suppose it would be good to get another update on that in terms of how that's feeding into the process as well, and what the department's doing around that. So there are many aspects we can come at this from, but I'm sure everyone will be able to speak to the issues, and I think it'll be a worthwhile debate. In terms of the other suggestion, because if we could squeeze in a second, it would be useful. Both you and I have been on the record, as of other members, about the concerns around private car parking firms and the operational area of unknown that they currently operate in without any current regulations. I think that would be a very worthwhile one, and one that is particularly pertinent to our constituents out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Very happy to support both of those.
Okay, great. Any other comments, Andrew?
Chair, just I think it's good to do this for sure. I haven't quite sort of thought out my thought process here, if that makes sense, but and I don't really, I haven't been involved in the process of bringing forward a review within the, but I mean, in my head, the 2 biggest things that we are facing is the wastewater infrastructure and the road surface issue. I mean, again, I don't know if those, I know we talk about wastewater infrastructure
Every week.
As we should, but truthfully, I don't think we're getting anywhere with it. So I do think it's, you know, and I'm no problem saying it, you know, it's a huge economic issue, it's a huge environmental issue, it's a huge social issue. So that's where my own head is at, and certainly I think the road surface, I mean, the Minister quite rightly was on this morning talking about the AI thing, and that's good, that's to be welcomed. I think there's correspondence in there on that, but again, if we're being truthful about what affects Northern Ireland the most at the minute, I think it's the road surface that we get in day out, and it is the wastewater. I mean, those are the 2 critical issues. So I mean, I'm not sure how we approach that. I say we are quite collegiate in this committee, and I think that's important, and I don't want to ruin that collegiality, but they are 2 big issues, Chair, that I think need addressed.
Yep.
Get back in that chair too.
Sure, Joe?
Yeah, totally agree. They are the 2 biggest issues. My only concern would be is when we bring our motion forward, because I think we've debated both of those issues in the last 6 months, and the Speaker and the Business Committee will not select unless we vary it in a way that doesn't address the previous issues, which I think it's going to be difficult to do. I think ourselves as a party have brought forward one on Northern Ireland wastewater within the last 6 months, and I'm sure we've debated road resurfacing since
I had an adjournment debate. I'm not sure that counts in terms
don't
of
think
6
it's a
months.
full motion, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure if it's not, then I'd be more than happy to support the issue. That's just the reason I hadn't raised it.
Thinking out loud more than anything.
Yeah,
No,
I think it's a fair point.
Yeah, no, Andrew, I completely take your point. I mean, they are crucial issues. I mean, and I suppose on the wastewater stuff, every week we are dealing in some way with wastewater. I think the issue is well known. I think the solution might be a little more complex, you know, and I'm cognizant of the Deputy Chair's point that we couldn't bring a motion within 6 months if it's been previously debated. We can try and couch it in slightly different terms, is my understanding, but I know that Clerk has scribbled those two things down. I'm more than happy, you know, if at some point members want closed session to talk about, you know, these sort of issues, I'm more than happy to facilitate that. I suppose I am just cognizant we're a couple of weeks out of recess. I want to give the clerking team the scope over that period to do work that will allow us to make best use of time when we come back from recess to have stuff prepared for us. So that was just the thinking on my part. Anybody else? Cahill.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And listen, I don't disagree with any of that. I mean, I'm just obviously mindful of the time. One, in terms of the planning, obviously there's models out there that works, and let's learn from them, especially the southern model, because they've on board plan and all that. And then you've local authorities to stay on it. There may be some teaching from it. In terms of, and I missed the briefing last week in terms of NAW, the issue for us, I mean, we're heading now for the next PC, Chair, and we're firefighting. Let's try and get a bit of that information. You know, I mean, I know it's not, because they're now programming their next PC, and I suggest us as a committee will be part of our work to see where it's at. I'm not saying they can share the detail, but it will gear us towards where they're going for the next 6-year programme. Mm-hmm. Because, like I say, if we could have them in and they'll firefight for money all the time, and it's just for us as a committee probably keep an eye on it. It wouldn't be a bad idea to suggest things like that. And if we need another session in, you had a good enough session. I read some of the stuff from last week. You had a good enough session last week.
And a long session, Cahill.
Long session, Chair. Well, I mean, fair play to you. You did well. You survived really well, Chair. The point is that from the commentary in relation to it, that's probably our work, our job work to look at that. And I'm only suggesting things how we go about it rather than every week. We know we're under severe pressure. In terms of the roads, I mean, we're certainly not going to fix the roads in the morning, but same thing. Obviously, the Minister was on this morning. We just need to be kept updated in terms of the maintenance and all of that there, and it's a select programme. But the things you've mentioned already, I think is reasonable, because when we're back for nearly 12 months, and then that's us, Chair, to be honest, to have those conversations, I think, you know, if we need luck again, but certainly the research team and all that help us out in terms of some of the stuff that's out there in terms of planning and everything else we can get research purpose. Only a suggestion, Chair.
Just on this one before we leave this, I mean, so certainly one of the particular points of pressure that I've come to understand in terms of planning over since certainly taking over chairing is the Planning Appeals Committee, and it has its own significant problems. I'm not sure if this Planning Appeals Committee has been discussed. As I said, I'm new here. Planning Appeals Committee, the Planning Appeals Commission is actually not under DFI. It actually sits under Justice. And some of the things I've heard, you know, in relation to that, I mean, that is highly problematic in terms of just jamming up a whole range of things. I don't think, Michael, there's much we can do about that. In terms of our varies on this committee and planning committee, is that untouchable? Is that something that if the Justice Committee were reminded to, they'd have to look at? Because I'm also conscious that in terms of how it's established, it sits within Northern Ireland courts. I mean, I think it probably gets its money from Justice, but
it's entirely independent as a body. It only receives administrative support from the Tribunal Service, Courts and Tribunal Service. So I'd need to go back and see what which committee, if it wanted to look at that.
could you have a chat with some other clerks, and also just establish who's responsible, you know,
Yeah.
who it's responsible to? Is it like the PPS where it's actually completely independent and responsible to no one? It's my view of the PPS, but I'd like to bottom that one out as well. Cahill?
Interesting point, Chair, but it still forms part of our debate. because that's the ultimate side, but while it's an independent, it will form some
Yeah.
part of the conversation.
It
that's
will.
all.
There's no doubt. Yeah, all roads lead to the PAC.
Yeah, absolutely.
Harry?
Thank you, Chair. No, just to back up what you said, I mean, planning, and I think what Andrew said is very interesting, in wastewater, and we all know there's a lot of connection between planning and wastewater. As we teased out some questions with Dr. Sherrill last week, and I would certainly like to push some of the questions I had brought to her, but yeah, I think we can tie it in together, those two things.
Okay.
Or lack of connection.
Or lack of connection. Funny and relevant, Andrew.
Okay.
Michael, do you need
There's a link in the committee.
do you need anything else, Michael, in terms of agreement?
Just to check, the members agreed that we'll write to the department to find out, get an update on the Transformation Fund on planning. There was a briefing, members will remember, in May at Belfast Harbour around speeding up planning. So we could write to the department for an update on that. And commission raised to carry out a comparative piece of research. Just to caution that our planning system is quite different from those both in the Republic and in the rest of the UK. But they will highlight that in the research. They can do some comparative research on that. And just to check that you're agreed, you want me to check on the status of the Planning Appeal Committee and which committee would necessarily need to look at that for us.
Committee agreed?
Agreed?
Brilliant.
Sure.
Justin?
Just could we also include as part of that query research on the economic cost of the delays in planning, which are very prevalent now.
Yeah, I think we can manage that. Let's include that and see what Rhea's come back with, just in terms of the economic costs and planning delay there. Okay, that's all.
Sorry, Chair, is that agreed? just to
People
check.
happy enough with Justin's suggestion, the impact? Yeah, okay, fine. Okay, takes us on draft minutes. They are at page 7 of your pack, and those are the minutes of the meeting on the 26th of November. I just need to seek committee agreement that the members are content that they are fair and accurate. Committee agreed? I will then sign them. And that is that. Which takes us to matters arising. Just to remind members, the committee at last week's meeting asked the clerk to ascertain if the Committee for Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs was engaging with the DAERA Minister in relation to the forthcoming investigation into pollution in Belfast Lough by the OEP. I can inform members that the committee has agreed to write to the DAERA Minister, so this committee doesn't need to duplicate it. In terms of that, Michael, could we ask that the Agriculture Committee copy us into the DAERA Minister's response?
Yes.
Is
Mr.
that
Chair,
possible?
We could request that, yes, if the committee's...
If the committee's happy with that, just to see what the outcome of that is. Do any members have any other matters that they wish to raise from last week's meeting? That's a no. That's okay. So members agreed? All right. Item 6 is correspondence. I'll take members to page 19, which is a correspondence memo. And I will take you through, and then if any members have anything to raise, more than happy to take those. The first one is at page 25. We have a response from the Minister for Infrastructure providing details of diversion signage information to inform road users of journey distance related to the road closure at Kilray Bridge, as well as what consideration has been given to support traders that have been detrimentally impacted as a result of these repairs. Just to seek committee agreement to write to the Minister to Communities to ascertain if there's any work ongoing to provide support to businesses in that area that are affected by the closure. Are committee happy enough for that? Okay. At page 27, we have a response from the DFI Minister to committee requests for further information on issues that are yet to be resolved and the estimated time frame for recommencement of the Gully pilot scheme. And just on that one, to seek committee agreement to write back to the department to ask for specific details of the issues that are causing delays in this. Committee happy enough with that? Okay. At page 28, we have a response from the Minister to committee request regarding what costs have been incurred to date in defending the judicial review and projected ongoing costs to the department in relation to Irish language signage at Belfast Grand Central Station. Seek committee agreement to write to the Minister to request costs when they are known. I suspect that will be some time off, but if members are happy enough that we write to the Minister just asking her to let us know when those costs are known, I suspect that will be after any case, if the case actually occurs. Are members happy enough with that?
Yes, Chair, happy. I think the frustration when I read it is we asked for all costs to date.
Yep.
So if we spend money, that's a cost to date, and if there's more money to come, you'll let us know whenever that's concluded. That could have been highlighted at this point.
It could have.
I think we're dancing in the head of a pin here, and we're
Yeah.
kicking it into touch a little bit, but I'm sure they know are well aware how much has been spent to date, because there will be a clear accounting process up to now for any invoices that have been settled.
Yeah.
But yes, we'll write again.
Michael, happy enough? Yeah, okay. Page 30. A response from the Minister to committee request providing a list of organisations invited by the Department to respond to the consultation on the Rail and Transport Bill, including which of these provided a response. Just inform members there's an updated version of this correspondence with a slight amendment, which is on table papers at page 3. I think the list is pretty comprehensive, but there is a slight adjustment. It's at your table papers at page 3. But notwithstanding, do I have committee agreement to write to the department seeking detail on the proposed subordinate legislation referred to in this response? Okay. At page 36, we have a response from the Minister to committee request regarding the anticipated timescales for the introduction of proposed new legislation to prohibit inconsiderate parking on pavements. Do I have committee agreement to write to the department seeking detail on the proposed subordinate legislation referred to in this response? Happy enough? Yep, okay. At pages 38 and 40, we have responses from the Minister for Infrastructure and the DERA Minister to committee request for the dates and associated minutes of meetings between departmental officials in relation to the A5. Both ministers have come back with the same dates. I'm not sure that should be consoling. I suppose it should be. In response to the committee's request, we did seek copies of these minutes. Both ministers have highlighted that these are expected to form part of DFI's appeal, and it would not be appropriate for these to be shared with the committee at this time. Does anyone have any views on this one? Clearly, the appeal is going to start next week. Is it? I would imagine at that point, all the information will have been submitted to the appeal court judges, and perhaps we'll just park this. Once all that information is in and it's in the hands of those judges, they might deem to let us see it, because it will not be sub judice anymore. Subject to anyone else have any views on this, just seek agreement to write to the Minister, the DFI Minister request the minutes at the conclusion of the appeal case.
Content.
Through the chair, I
Alison,
wanted
yeah.
to express the view just that it is a flagship project in every respect, and that all departments hopefully are there supporting exactly, if anything, the successful outcome in relation to the A5 and that as well too.
Nope, that's absolutely right. I mean, I know you're new to the committee, Militia. Certainly, the committee's view was that the original case, the Justice Michael Linden, and essentially this is what I raised with the Minister this week on the floor of the Assembly. Didn't really answer my question, but there you go. Was all the supporting information provided to DFI at the initial hearing? And that's what we've been trying to establish in the committee. But anyway, A point well made, and let's see what the appeal court makes of the department's response. Oh, wait, did we get agreement on that one, Michael?
Yes, we did.
You did? Fine.
Ticked.
Yeah, it's ticked. Excellent. At
What
page,
did you take there, Michael? The 5, is that what you take? You couldn't mind yourself.
at page 44, we have correspondence from the department providing notification of a launch of a public consultation on the finding of its draft speed limit review 2025. I just need to seek committee agreement to schedule an oral evidence session in the Ford work programme at an appropriate date to hear some evidence around this. Are committee happy enough with that? Okay. On page 90, we have correspondence from the Committee for the Economy regarding a call for evidence on the RHI closure of non-domestic scheme bill. Do members have any views on this bill they want to share? Have to, but if you so wish. That sounds like a no. So we can go back to the Department of Economy and no strong views. At page 149, we have correspondence from a member of the public regarding a complaint relating to ongoing parking obstruction preventing access from a mobility vehicle. Again, usually there may be one of these comes along that we really do feel we'd want to look at. However, the standard custom and practice for this committee is to point the individual to the department's complaints procedure and the work of NIPSO, and that support is also available from their local MLAs regarding it. Our committee agree with that course of action? Yep.
Great,
Okay.
Chair.
That notwithstanding, do any members have anything they want to raise from the additional remaining items of correspondence?
Nope.
In that case, do I have committee agreement to note the additional correspondence?
Great.
Okay. Which takes us seamlessly to in-year monitoring round. And this is oral evidence from the Department for Infrastructure. I'll take members on the journey through the evidence. At page 159, we have the clerk's memo, December monitoring, and that is the oral evidence. At page 166, we have the Department for Infrastructure Dialogue letter. At page 169, we have the capital bids form. At page 186, we have the equality forms. At 196, we have the resource bid form, and that's the executive commitment on pay award. And at page 200, we have the easement forms. I'd like to welcome Susan, Peter, Alison, and Cindy from the Department for Infrastructure. I need to seek committee agreement that this session is recorded by Hansard. Are committee agreed?
Great.
And therefore, I will invite the officials to make an opening statement of up to 10 minutes. And then the officials could expect some questions from committee members, but the floor is yours.
Okay, so thank you, Chair. Then I shall start with just some opening comments and then leave some time for questions as well. So as you'd outlined there, Chair, members will have received then the written briefing from the department. This is in relation to December monitoring. And for this occasion then, we have just expecting this last monitoring round for this financial year. So in previous years, we would have had an October monitoring round, followed then by a final January and February, it's more December, January combined round. However, the October one was pushed back a little bit later, and then the December-January one has been moved into this current month as well. Given the pressures that were experienced across all NI departments, departments were not allowed to submit resource bids then for this monitoring round, so that's been a difference again compared to previous monitoring rounds. Therefore, in terms of resource, we do still face a number of inescapable pressures, particularly within our ALBs, Translink and NI Water, and we're continuing to engage with our NDPBs to make sure that they can take action to live within the budget allocations that they have received, and we'll continue to assess that internally as well. As I've mentioned, then resource bids could not be submitted. However, the executive did give a commitment to funding pay-related costs should additional funding become available. So therefore, we did submit that as a bid, which was 6.7 million, following that executive commitment that was given. We did declare an easement on the resource side, however, that related to reprofiling for the transformation funding for the Transforming Planning programme. And as that was ring fenced, we were unable to use that for anything else within the department, and therefore it had to be returned to the executive for decisions on how it would be reprofiled and allocated out. Moving on then to capital, so departments were able to submit capital bids, and as you'd expect then we did bid quite strongly for capital projects and priorities for the remainder of this year. The total of our bids we submitted is 113.1 million as set out in the briefing. They were also prioritised, as you'll see in the table that was provided. We started with our overplanning. So again, members will recall, as part of the opening budget decision, we agreed to overplan by a certain amount to make sure that we could get funding out at the start of the year. So that was a proactive management decision that was taken. However, we still need to bid for that to manage that down in year, and that's 34.1 million. We then bid for structural maintenance as the second highest priority, which was 19 million, which was the assessment of what could be spent then between now and the remainder of the year. And then working our way down the table, we bid for street lighting, NI Water, which is on the drinking water infrastructure, 10 million, which reflects what NI Water has outlined it could spend for the remainder of the year, and then some other smaller pressures that were all inescapable. Moving on then to our high priority bids, so these are areas which aren't contractually committed at this stage, but we put those in as well as high priority, which includes foil, port borrowing, the enterprise fleet replacement, Ballinhinge bypass, and then desirable projects in relation to TransLink. We also then submitted a number of easements, and again, these related primarily to ring-fenced areas where the department was unable to reuse those and reallocate within the department. So you'll see in the table then we submitted an easement of 102 million for shared island fund, for A5. A balance of that was shared island funding and 28 million for executive funding. We also then submitted easements for the A6, Belfast Rapid Transit, Lagan Pedestrian Cycle Bridge, and then some other smaller easements in relation to Newry Southern Relief Road, as well as the Enniskillen Southern Bypass, and a small EU Peace Plus enterprise. As I said, they are ring fenced, so we couldn't use them. However, we did make the case to DOF, given the scale of our bids and the amount that we could spend between now and year end, that would be keen to get those reallocated back to us, but I would stress that's a decision then for the executive to take. So I've just run through then where we are in relation to December monitoring. I'm happy to take questions then, Chair.
That's great. Thank you very much, Susan, and thank you for coming in front of committee. I might skip around a wee bit, but I'll start off and then I'll go to the Deputy Chair. In terms of the resource funding and the 6.7 million for pay pressures, what are those pay pressures, or should I say where are those pay pressures?
So again, we have pay pressures in a range of areas within the department, within NI Water and TransLink. However, within the department we can manage those, and NI Water equally has demonstrated they can manage their pay pressures too. So at this stage the remaining pay pressures are really around TransLink.
And so that 6.7 million, you sort of saying that's going to TransLink?
No, so it depends. First of all, we have to get the 6.7 million, so we bid for it, so we have to get it, and then Minister has to consider that in the round, just confirming the position with TransLink and where TransLink's pay negotiations are as well.
Okay. Well, let's make the assumption. Okay. Well, let's not make the assumption, but the bid is for 6.7. Assuming you get the 6.7, what percentage is going to TransLink?
So again, that would be a decision for Minister to take, and we'd have to take that just on the current assessment of pay pressures at that point in time.
Okay. Let me rephrase and go a slightly different direction. Is it your understanding that Northern Ireland Water submitted a £5 million resource bid to the department?
So NI Water has indicated a pressure of 5 million, 5.3 million I think the figure is, and that will depend very much on the assumptions and weather assumptions and how that transpires and works out between now and year end.
And is any of that 5.3 related to pay pressures, do you know?
My understanding is NI Water has confirmed that it can live within current budget allocations, including pay. So that would be more for seasonal events and depending on how the rainfall, etc., is between now and year end.
Okay, that's great. Could I go to just capital and this phrase overplanning?
Yeah.
So whenever I saw overplanning, I thought maybe it's just me being new to the committee, but I did ask three special advisors and one director of finance in a different government department who had never heard the term over planning before. Is this something that is just used within DFI?
I couldn't speak for other departments, but certainly it's something that we do within DFI. We overplan because we have a large capital budget, so maybe other departments have a smaller capital budget and therefore they're not, I suppose it's not as easy for them to manage capital overplanning, but certainly we do it in the capital. We wouldn't do it in resource, but we do it in the capital because we know a couple of things we know. We know that projects will slip throughout the year. We always have, in previous years, got additional funding in year, so we need to make sure we have plans in place to spend that. And if we have plans in place at the start of the year, it means we're getting better value for money and that we can spend any capital in a more measured and appropriate way, rather than just trying to spend it at year end. So that's why we do it, but again, I can't speak for other departments, but certainly we have done it within DFI as a prudent financial management tool.
It's more the term. Would it be fair to say that another word that a department might use would be contingency?
No, it's not a contingency, because a contingency was something that we would hold for an event that might happen that we don't know about, so it's not a contingency. So we have actually already committed this spend, and it's out there and being developed as we speak. So in my mind, they're two very
Two different things. Okay, that's fine. And in terms of that figure of 34.1 million, that is 30% of your overall capital bid for overplanning. I did also note in the incredibly small thing, when you print some of these out, they get very small. Apparently, I think the justification for that is it's 4% of your overall capital budget or something. Did I read that somewhere? Yeah?
So at the start of the year, whenever we're looking at the budget allocation that we have, we've normally overplanned by about 4% of what our budget is. And again, that's just a figure that we've used in previous years, which has worked well for us, and we've been able to either manage that down either through natural slippage or, as I say, additional funding coming in. So that's a percentage that we have used in previous years and did again for this year as well.
And in terms of how you've classified it as a priority, it's down as inescapable. Could you explain how, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is money that you might spend between now and the end of the financial year?
So this is money that has already been committed. So we've already factored this into our opening budget decisions. It's gone out to our ALBs within the department, so it's already committed, it's already spent, that is in the ground, and either has been done or is in the process of being done.
Wow, okay, so you're effectively saying there that it meets the legal or contract, it's effectively you have a contractual commitment to this 34 million?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's already factored in, yeah.
Okay, so what happens if you don't get this 34 million?
So again, if we don't get this, we will need to look and see what other projects we can slow down, if we can, across the whole range of the department and its ALBs. But as I say, we wouldn't do that until we get the outcome of December monitoring.
Okay, so you mentioned they're slowing down. So again, just you correct me if I'm wrong. This 34 million is money that effectively by year end you will owe to someone. Is that right?
It's already,
So far, good. Okay. So if you don't get this, you will stop other capital projects so you don't have to pay them, so you can pay this.
So it may mean that instead of progressing something in March, we might do it in April. So that's the kind of decisions that we need to look at.
Okay.
But as I say, we're not at that stage yet because we are bidding for it, and you'll note the amount of easements that we've given back into the centre.
Yep.
And again, it's totally a decision for the executive, but given that that's our highest priority bid, and given that we are a big capital spending department, we'd be hopeful.
Okay, so 34 million is a fairly sizable amount regardless, and it's just to understand, again, just staying with that concept, if you weren't successful in getting this, what you would do is not you used the word slow down, but not proceed with some other capital projects to a level that they'd be pushed into the next financial year. I mean, it's not, I would imagine, and again, if I'm wrong on this, I mean, you can't just slow down a couple of things and think, oh, there's our 34 million. It's not, you cannot build half a road. I mean, this is such a large figure. It's just, I'd like to understand if you don't get this, where the department is considering making this, we'll call it a saving for want of another term, in order to meet these statutory obligations or these contractual obligations that the department has already signed up to?
So again, that's something that we will look at. So once we hear the outcome of December monitoring, at that stage then we will be able to pinpoint more clearly what we might need to do. We also then continue to monitor our capital outturn on a monthly basis. So there will be likely to be natural slippage too in some areas as well, as we know that. So again, there's a number of things in the mix here. There's the natural slippage, what we get from December monitoring outcome, and then our last resort would be looking to slow down things if we had to.
Would you accept, Susan, that natural slippage and so forth in no way will get anywhere near £34 million in 3 months?
It's a lot, yes, I accept that totally, but again, we just need to look at what will happen, and there's staffing costs in there as well, so there's a whole range of things in the mix, and it depends too on our ALBs as well, so. Sorry, Peter, I think wanted to come in there?
Yeah, sorry, just maybe to explain maybe some of the context, just within the TransLink, you're talking about between 250 and 300 separate projects ongoing at any one time. So when you're talking about slowing down, you're not talking about slowing down 1 or 2 or 3 projects. You're talking a large number of potential projects. Therefore, that does give you scope in terms of not stopping, but potentially slowing down those particular projects at the end of this time of the year. So maybe that's just going to give a bit of sense of the scale of the number of projects involved.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's fine. I mean, I suspect you're not answering this question, but in sort of the previous answers, you did mention that there were a range of things that you could do to try and address this £34 million figure. Have you any sense of what those are, apart from any more specifics?
No, at this stage I wouldn't have anything more specific, but again, it's something that we will look at if we need to, depending on the outcome of December monitoring.
Fine. Okay. I'll pause there, and I've got some others, but I don't want to take up all the time. I'm going to go to the Deputy Chair. John.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, folks, again for coming along and for the presentation so far. The one consistent we've seen, as you know, we make the point every time from monitoring rounds, is we never get everything we ever ask for. And some of the pressures, as the Chair and you've already alluded to, are inescapable. So if we look at structural maintenance with a £19 million bid, can you, that's down as a scalable bid, can you just talk me through that and how you would make an inescapable pressure slightly more escapable, if that makes sense, with a smaller budget? So how are we planning to spend that money and make that work within the remaining year to ensure road safety and to ensure that our roads are up to the standards they need to be if we don't get the full 19 million?
Yeah, I suppose the reason why it's scalable, and we submitted it as scalable, just to indicate that if we got anything, we would be able to spend something rather than putting in to say it's 19 or nothing. So that's why we identified it as being scalable, to try and help to get something out of it. But I'll maybe hand then to Cindy just for the
In terms
detail.
of structural maintenance, that includes the resurfacing and the reconstruction
Yes.
work that we do. We have contracts in place in all of our areas for that type of work. And so what we have in place as well is we have programs of work of things that we would like to do and like to be able to do. And obviously, depending on the outcome of the December monitoring round, we would revisit those programs and look and see what is actually going to be the optimum delivery that we have. So obviously, you know, there's certain types of schemes that you don't want to be doing in January, February and March. And we'll work very closely with the contracting industry as well in terms of their resources. And also, we're very fortunate that we have an internal consultant who can deliver the design capacity in terms of those type of schemes. So it's all about looking at the programmes, picking or selecting those projects that you know that you can deliver within the available time and with the resources that are available to you. So as I say, we have any amount of schemes that we could consider depending on the outcome of the monitoring round.
Okay, so in respect to that, and that's really useful information, in respect to that then, the £19 million bid, what percentage or what amount of that is for amounts already committed to contracts and contractors for works that are planned, and which percentage of it is for schemes that you would like to see undertaken on top of that?
In terms of the 19, the
Oh,
bid
is
that's
it
in
all
there,
for-
it's all for.
Yeah, none of it would be committed yet.
None of it's
so we wouldn't
committed.
commit until we actually get the outcome of December monitoring.
Okay,
and
so I
knowing
maybe
how
misheard
much.
that thing, because I thought we said was that we've already committed to some of the contractors for ongoing
No,
maintenance schemes.
we have existing contracts,
Yes, I appreciate
contractual
that.
arrangements
Okay.
for this type of work. we haven't written any works orders for associated with this.
Okay, so every contract that's been awarded has currently been carried out with the money that in the in-year budget so far?
These are multi-year, multi-term contracts.
Yes,
so,
appreciate
yeah,
that.
So
So
they're,
is there any money for capital works sitting within any of the divisions currently for schemes that should have taken place in terms of resurfacing or road repairs that haven't been to date in this current financial year?
I only can speak on behalf of Southern Division, where I'm the Divisional Roads Manager currently, and I do know that we do have some work still outstanding within the current allocations. I know of at least one scheme in the Armagh area that we're still working on and hoping to deliver within the next coming weeks. So there's one or two. We're also committed to working with DFC in delivering some schemes there associated with Newton Large public realm. So there's one or two schemes still sitting within our current allocations that we still have to deliver. But you know, in terms of the capacity and the work that we would normally be doing, most of it is completed.
Okay, that's good to know. Regarding the Southern Division, do you know the value roughly of outstanding works? And I
think it's probably in the region of about £1 million, thereabouts. There's obviously some capital structural maintenance as well that goes towards the asphalt patching, so we're conscious that we're doing a bit of that type of work as well.
Okay, but that will be spent within the current financial year?
Absolutely, yeah.
No problem. When we just, and thank you for that, in terms of the arm's length bodies and the fact that there's no resource funding, you talked, Susan, about the works that's been ongoing to make efficiency savings. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, and do you have any concerns about potential overspend again, given what we continue to hear from our arm's length bodies about inescapable pressures? They keep telling us that they've done all they can. They've put another £5 million bid in. Are you concerned about the potential for a repeat of the overspend from last time?
I'll maybe hand it to Alison for
Alison,
Water
sorry.
and
Yes.
Peter for Translink.
Sure. So Northern Water submitted their annual operating plan and budget to us in February. At that time, they said they had a requirement, a resource requirement of 172 million, which was above the final outturn of last year. The department went back and asked them to look at that again, to look at more savings, and that was reduced to initially 161 million, and it has now come down to 156 million. They've been allocated 151 million, and as part of the review of the operating plan and budget, Northern Water have confirmed that they can live within 151 million.
Okay.
The resource bid for 5 million in this December monitoring round is really to address some of the risk, the assumptions of risk we're making around weather. So last springtime was actually quite a dry springtime, so the cost wasn't as much last spring in terms of pumping and that type of thing. So we've applied that risk assumption again in relation to weather, but should the weather be different and it be very wet, obviously there might be a risk of increased funding. But they have confirmed that they can live within the budget that's been provided.
Okay, that's good to know. The chair touched on the pay pressures, particularly around Translink, and we've heard some speculation. Well, we know that there's ongoing negotiations between the unions and between the department, and there has been some potential talk about strike action, industrial action. I'm just keen to get a flavour for where that's at and the gap in funding that may exist that would be needed. I'm not saying I know the Minister has to take a decision, but your assessment of where the gaps are and how close that might take us to industrial action, and where you think we need to get to in terms of that funding piece. Peter, sorry, never know him.
Okay, I'll take that, Deputy Chair. So officials are working closely with Translink throughout the year regarding their financial allocation, and you referred to pressures. So again, we are working closely with them to understand those pressures and the actions they're taking to live within the budget.
That's the answer. He's on strike already. Where the door goes.
Yeah. So Translink will live within their budget, you know, that, and they're taking actions in terms of efficiency plans. They've also brought forward some other activities in terms of how they can reduce their resource pressures, and that's currently being considered by the department. In terms of pay negotiations, Translink, as the Arm's body, are responsible for negotiating the pay with their staff. They have entered into negotiations with the relevant trade unions. I am aware, as part of those negotiations, that some of those trade unions have previously balloted their members.
Okay.
In advance of those negotiations, and those ballots have come back, and I think the union members have voted that they would take action up to including industrial action, but that's as far as it's got in terms of that.
Okay.
So negotiations between Translink and the unions, I think Translink have made an offer to those unions regarding the pay. This will be for Translink to confirm that this is affordable within their budget allocation,
Yes.
both for this year and next year. Those negotiations are ongoing as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, the outcome of December monitoring might help inform some of that there, but at this minute in time, it's between Translink and the unions regarding that negotiation.
Okay. So that will be, it sounds anyway, like a relief to the many people who were concerned about potential industrial action before Christmas. So as far as you're concerned, Peter, that's currently on ice effectively, awaiting potentially the outcome of both this monitoring round and the ongoing negotiations that could take us past Christmas.
Yeah, I think that's probably as far as I would want to comment on that.
Yeah. Okay, that's grand. 2 more points if I may, Chair, because there's quite a lot within this. Inescapable pressures of 10 million for NI Water regarding drinking water infrastructure. There was a similar amount, I think, in the last monitoring round. And obviously, when people see drinking water infrastructure, they start to panic about the potential for drinking water and the supply. Can you talk us through their explanation for that and how much they think they could potentially get by if they don't get the full 10 million and where that might fall short?
So the 10 million capital budget for Northern Ireland Water is based across 6 projects.
Okay.
Of the 10 million, approximately 8 million is for wastewater projects to release capacity and relieve development constraints. £2 million of it is for water projects, which is really replacement of trunk mains.
Okay, so it's 8 million for wastewater capacity and 2 million for water. Okay, and will that percentage ratio then be applied to any funding you get for the bid of 10 million?
If we don't get the full 10 million, then we'll obviously have to look at which projects can deliver and spend the money by the end of March. But Northern Ireland Water are telling us that if 10 million is available, they are able to spend it all at this point.
I've no doubt
And
that
if
they
it's not,
could.
obviously that'll have to be scaled down accordingly.
Might be back to you, Peter, then. The final point is on Translink and their enterprise fleet replacement scheme. Can I just get a feel for the state or assessment state of the fleet as it stands and the potential for those to go off the rails should the scheme not go ahead, and any ROI involvement in terms of that the funding for those capital projects, if you're aware of any?
Yeah. So the current fleet is coming up to its 30-year life. So
Yes.
that brings it into around about 2027. And there are ongoing maintenance costs with the enterprise, as with all train sets. As the train sets get older, then you're looking into putting in additional maintenance to ensure that it's up to standard. So in terms of as the age of the fleet gets older, you would expect maybe the maintenance cost to increase. There is a joint project between ourselves and the Department of Transport to replace the existing enterprise fleet to enable an hourly service to continue. That is ongoing at the minute. So we've just completed a procurement exercise. And we're hoping to award a contract regarding that, subject to the completion of the appropriate business cases.
Okay.
So that's where that is at the minute, and that's aiming to replace the first new train sets to come in and around 2029, 2030.
So if this bid wasn't successful, would that affect that contract, or is this for another phase of that contract to upgrade another batch of enterprise trains?
No, so that project's ongoing at the minute, so we haven't yet awarded a contract. So,
Okay.
Sorry. So it's a large project. There will be smaller contracts in terms
Appreciate
of
it.
consultants, etc. But in terms of the main contract of the trains, that procurement is completed, and we would look to award the contract over the coming weeks and months.
Okay.
If this bid wasn't successful, we would maybe look to see whether that contract would be awarded in the start of the new financial year rather than at the end of this current financial year.
Okay, that's very useful. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, John. Harry?
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you all. Susan, when you said not able to submit resource bids apart from pay related, how does that compare to where we were like this time last year, what we were submitting?
So in previous years, we have been able to bid for resource at this stage, either in the October monitoring or December, January. But this situation is quite different this year because of the pressures being experienced across other departments, which I suppose is in the media around health and education. So on that basis, then departments just have been told we cannot submit resource bids. And also the executive has already given a commitment to meet some pay pressures across health, education, justice and ourselves. So they would have the first call on any funding that was available. So it would be, I suppose, pointless to submit bids if there's no funding going to be there. So that was the rationale, as I understand it.
Yep, okay, thank you. And the Balnahinch bypass, I mean, it's one of the priority projects. It does have a start date, doesn't it? I mean, that's already submitted, or can you tell us a bit more about that?
It's continuing to move through the procurement. So I think that we can come back to you on that one, to what exactly the start date is, yeah.
Please do. I think, I mean, the last I looked, I think it was, there's an upgrade on the A1 possibly, and then I think it's
Again,
next on the list after
it's
that.
moving through the procurement process, yeah.
Maybe you could update me on that.
Yes, certainly we have.
And can you tell me any more about the Arch Public Realm?
We're working in conjunction with DFC currently. We've substantially completed the footway works. It's actually DFI's contractor that's doing that, with funding coming from DFC. Now that the footway works have been completed or substantially completed, we're programming some resurfacing of the carriageway of Francis Street.
Okay. And when's that due to be?
I think we have 3 weekends booked, January, February time,
Okay.
for to do it over those 3 weekends.
Brilliant. Yep. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Harry. Andrew?
I suppose just, you've mentioned, referenced a few times now about the fact that there's one monitoring round as opposed to 2 previous monitoring rounds. I suppose, I mean, I can remember whenever PMQs was twice a week and now it's only once a week. What challenges does it only having one monitoring round place the department? And is it something that you're expecting? I mean, is this going to be an ongoing? Is this going to be the new norm? I mean, maybe obviously it will fluctuate, obviously, but just the wider challenges about having one monitoring round.
It does present us with more of a challenge because therefore we've got more assumptions factored in. So the later it is in the year, the more certainty we have. For example, as Alison mentioned about the NI water and the weather assumptions, so we would have more certainty around that at a later monitoring round than what we do now. So it builds more uncertainty into our profiling and what we know about it at this stage in financial terms. So that's our key challenge around the timing. I have no indication that this will become the new norm. Normally the traditional is 3 monitoring rounds per year, and I expect that will go back to that way next year, but again it's a decision for DOF and the executive ultimately.
Okay. I think you sort of touched on the answer, and we're going to lead into the next 2 as well. When it comes, we're seeing more and more extreme weather events and the impact it has on our infrastructure. I mean, in South Down, there's various roads that have closed as such. So, I mean, I suppose when it comes to the road maintenance, I know I've touched on it, but by only having one monitoring round, is there enough? What contingency plans are there should extreme weather events affect the road infrastructure and other infrastructure that's critical to Northern Ireland?
Well, if you refer to the incidences that we've had recently in the South Down area, as you know, we diverted resources and utilised resources to do temporary repairs in the likes of Sunningdale and Tullybrannigan, and that's come from existing resources that we've had. We've made an additional bid, and you'll see within the package that there is an additional bid there for storm damage. So we're looking for additional funds to cover that, but we've taken it from an existing allocation that we have within Southern Division presently.
So just so extreme events like this, there's no, you're having to take it from other places.
Yes.
So other people
Yes.
just lose out then, really.
Yeah.
So there's no.
Yeah,
Okay.
we essentially will have to delay work that we may have had prioritised in some of our other programmes.
But there's also likewise the Cloan, outside Cloan, there was the road that,
Yes.
I mean, so this is a habitual thing now, really, isn't it?
There's a number of locations we have that we're in the process of getting repairs done, and we will have to find the resources in the contractor resource, the internal resource, and also the financial resource to be able to complete those repairs. So those will have to be prioritised, and other schemes that we would like to have done may not be completed in the same timeline.
Going back again to NI Water, it's, we had NI Water in last week, and we hear all the pressures, if that makes sense, and we get you guys in this week, and it's like, no, it's okay, they can live within each other's budgets. So again, I always struggle to get my head around this. How is, given the increasing demands on the fresh water, given the increasing demands, I mean, given there's only one monitoring round here, they're sort of running to stand still. I mean, how much are they going to go backwards, and what's the views of the department for letting the NI Water go backwards when it comes to wastewater, when it comes to fresh water, because it's obviously a huge concern?
So in relation to Northern Ireland Water's requirement on capital this year, they advised us as part of their operating plan and budget that they required £405 million of capital. That was what they thought that they could spend this year. After June monitoring, and as we currently sit, they've been allocated 90% of that capital requirement, and with a further bid in for another 10 million.
Okay, but yet Belfast, living with the water, stall, fire, living with the water. Yeah, okay, no worries, Chair. That's great. Thank you.
That was nearly another question there.
I was, I
Andrew,
know, but I
was
try
it?
to keep myself to three. You know,
Yeah, well,
I
you know,
try to be
you-
kosher about it. So
Yeah, it's fine, it's fine. Alicia?
Thank you, Robert. You're very welcome. Just in relation to the reduced requirements, you have actually said that part of the problem there was procurement. Could you expand on that?
So in terms of the reduced requirements on capital, they were largely on ring-fenced areas, so there will be delays in procurement, and also then there will be delays around whether or not we can proceed with certain capital schemes given the ongoing legal case on the A5.
What is the difficulty with procurement there? Is it from within the department, or?
I've no more information on the difficulty around procurement. I think it's more just whether or not we can proceed given the A5 appeal and where it is in the legal process at this point in time.
And has it impacted on other projects in that as well, other than just the A5?
So it's mainly on the roads projects, yes. Some of those we are holding to see how we can progress and what we can do legally within the, I suppose, the outcome of the A5 judgment and then the ongoing appeal as well.
And do you have any idea just what percentage is impacted as a result?
I wouldn't have that figure off the top of my head, but I can certainly come back to you on that. We can certainly
And the
pull
number of
something
firms
together.
maybe that are involved in that?
Yeah.
Well, Margaret, thank you.
Thank you.
I haven't seen anyone else indicate, and that would be Justin just indicating, but if I just go first. Folks, if I could take you to the bid form that you submit to DOF, and take you to the one on overplanning, which I'm sure you have in front of you. And there are 3 columns, UOB, and it says A0102, A0602, A0302, and there's no more detail. However, the figures on the capital side, on the right-hand side of the column there, says 8, 13, 12. It adds up to 34. I'm just guessing that is then the total. Can you explain to me what those numbers mean and what they relate to? Because it seems like your 34 million has been split into 3.
Yeah, so we're required to do this for DOF reporting purposes. It is very technical. So UOB stands for Unit of Business. So
Yep.
that's the way that we are required to report to DOF, and indeed the way then they report to Treasury. I don't actually know off the top of my head which AOBs they are, the numbers,
It's
there
okay.
will be descriptors against them, but I certainly can come back to you on those. The record number then relates to specific projects within that,
Yep.
within the relevant unit of business. But because we don't allocate our overplanning to specific projects, we still have to recognise it when reporting to DOF. So we've just done that on a pro rata basis. So that does not mean that that links directly to project X, Y, or Z. It's a pro rata allocation for reporting purposes to DOF.
I might be really stupid, but I didn't understand any of that, Susan.
Okay.
I might have to have another go at that.
Very well explained, Susan.
So, watch yourself at the end there, Cathal.
We're listening down here, Chair. We're listening.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it. So you've got 3. Forget the UOB. I get that unit of business.
Yeah.
There are 3 figures, which when you add together
Yeah.
get to 34 million, which I'm assuming is your
Overplanning amount.
overplanning
Yep.
bid, right? Okay. So I suppose my question is, what do those 3 figures represent, and where do they come from?
So again, that's just a pro rata allocation of the overplanning because we have to show it somewhere. So we've just simply done a pro rata allocation. It does not mean that that relates to a specific project X, Y, or Z. It is just simply because we need to report it to DOF, we've done a pro rata allocation.
Right. So essentially, like, you could make up anything. Can you make up any figures and any UOBs?
Well, I suppose we haven't made it up per se. We've done a pro rata allocation based on where our budget sits. So UOB level is usually roads, rivers, transit, water. So we've just done a very high level based on 30%, for example, of our budget is against A102. It's not, but that's just an example. And then we've done 30% of the over planning against that. So
Okay.
we've
So they
tried to be a
don't-
little bit scientific about it, but it's not in any way representative of projects.
Okay, no, that does answer my question. So the figures in themselves are relatively meaningless, maybe?
It's a total really that we're focused
It's
on.
a total,
and
it's
that's
34
the-
is the,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
that's
but we're
fine.
required to report it in a certain way to
Yeah,
DOS,
that's
so
okay.
that's the best we can
No,
do.
that's fine. Okay, Justin?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, folks. Easements.
Yes, mhm.
You mentioned the Newry Southern Leaf Road. What's the easement on that? And explain why there's a 1.9 million easement on the A5, I believe.
1.9 is on the A6.
Six.
So again, in terms of detail around the A6, it's just simply delayed to the major road schemes because of the A5 ruling. So because of the A5 ruling, then we're not able to progress some of these other road schemes until we sort of work through the implications of that
So
and
that
the
money
appeal
comes
as
back.
well. So that money has gone back to DOF because it's ring fenced and we can't spend it.
Okay, we might come back to that. The Mineral Products Association presented to committee just a number of weeks back, and they presented a stark position in terms of the critical warning about the state of our roads, highlighting the critical point in the road network. The association has pointed out that the budget for essential road maintenance has fallen to its lowest level in decades, covering only a fraction of what is needed to maintain the network in a safe and serviceable condition. The situation has reached breaking point due to years of underinvestment and loss of experienced staff, leading to deteriorating road surfaces and growing safety risks. And the Mineral Products Association, who are the industry body, of course, are calling for urgent action to restore adequate funding and rebuild delivery capacity within the Department for Infrastructure to ensure the safety of road users and the efficiency of the transport system. Now, we have a big announcement today that we've got a new camera car for taking pictures of the potholes, but where is the October monitoring, this monitoring round, in terms of addressing the concerns of industry, and how, to what extent does this monitoring round and the bids by your department address their concerns?
So we recognise that, and we have submitted bids then for structural maintenance of 19 million. So we have submitted that strong bid. You'll see there it's our second highest priority bid behind over planning, and the reason why it's second is because over planning is already committed, it's already out there, whereas the structural maintenance then is the second, so effectively the top priority behind the over planning amount, in recognition of the importance of securing that additional funding.
In terms of where staffing levels are at, where there was a redundancy factor in terms of projects underway, have you been able to ramp back up again, or how does that operate? How has that affected the ability for the department to address the major structural concerns of the roads network?
As I said, depending on the outcome of this monitoring round, we will have to work very closely with the industry and with our internal teams as well to maximise the delivery that we can do. We are aware that there are certain areas that maybe have been more affected by some of that. So we're looking at a balanced approach in terms of sharing whatever outcome of that across a number of our contracting resources. So it's not just all going to one project, but because we have long-term term contracts for the likes of resurfacing and reconstruction, we would develop those programs so that we can optimise the delivery. But certainly, you're right, the redundancies and the lack of skilled forces was something we'll have to consider and make sure that we have a balanced approach to that.
Is that a question just turning the tap back on?
It's not a question of turning the tap on. You know, it's also complicated by the fact that it's coming at this time of the year as well. So the type of schemes that you can deliver at this time of year are much different. If you take, for example, in Southern Division, you know, this time last year we spent 600,000 over 6 months. You know, if we're going to be successful in a bid like this, we're looking at specific projects that can deliver and maximise what we can deliver over a shorter period of time. So you're looking at selecting those projects that will give you that sort of efficiency in delivery. So you're looking at the likes of dual carriageways or the longer term strategic type roads, looking at developing projects on those that are much more time less dependent, and not dependent on a lot of proprietary works in your curbing or your drainage works. So as I say, we're going to have to be very selective in the types of projects that we would deliver, so we can maximise.
Right, so you mentioned longer term, more strategic projects. What the run-of-the-mill projects, the structural maintenance of our everyday roads, potholes, resurfacing strips. How is the ability of the department to get to grips with that?
Well, the structural maintenance allocation goes towards resurfacing and reconstruction, and obviously we also have the resource allocation, which is towards patching, which essentially is the repair. We have our routine patching work that we do, and then when we're developing our resurfacing programs, essentially we're looking at, and one of the factors that we look at in terms of determining the condition of the road is the number of structural defects, including potholes that are there, and that feeds into what sort of design solutions we come up with for resurfacing. So that's all, there's a linkage there between, you can't just say, well, you just repair the potholes, you don't do the resurfacing. By doing the resurfacing, you're effectively increasing the structural integrity of the road and, getting rid of your potholes.
Is industry content with where your dismantling round, how your dismantling round will deliver?
I think the figure of 15 million is what the industry had indicated that they would need to be able to continue delivering.
Okay, what's the road in Armagh that's been resurfaced?
The road in Armagh we still have surfacing. There is the section from out of Armagh towards the Moy. There's actually 2 sections just in there that we would like to do.
Excellent.
And it would.
Sorry, you know that very well. I mean, bring Justin down this way.
It's Orchard Country. Orchard Country was down there last week, a few weeks ago, picking apples. Just try sometime. Try sometime.
Picking apples in Upper Ballon.
Try it sometime. Tell me, in terms of the enterprise fleet, you just mentioned Peter, and you have a great engineering name, by the way, a great engineer from Dundalk. Peter Rice was very famous globally. In terms of the enterprise fleet and the timeline for its life cycle, you mentioned 2027 end of life cycle.
Yep.
And you mentioned that this new fleet would hopefully be able to maintain the hourly enterprise service. If this new fleet is not delivered, what are the implications on the hourly enterprise service?
Well, the intention is, as I mentioned earlier, 2 departments have entered into procurement for a new enterprise fleet replacement. That timeline is that those trains would come in, hopefully in from 2029 onwards. The existing enterprise service is delivered by a mixture of actually the enterprise trains originally. When we went to an hourly service last year, it's also a mixture of Translink trains and also Irish Rail trains. The existing enterprise trains, they have its design standard life of 30 years, which brings up to 2027. That does not mean at the end of 2027 they all stop working and there's a cessation of service. It just means as we go forward, they are getting older, but like your car, you will have to invest more to maintain it, to keep it going. You can't keep it going beyond 2027. There's no indication that the service will stop, but obviously as the trains get older, there are higher maintenance costs involved.
Okay, final question, Chair. Thank you. Delays in procurement on the A5. What were the failings in procurement?
I'm not sure it's failings in computer. I think it's just that we can't proceed, or we're not able to proceed, given that the A5 ruling was made, and then we're currently appealing that. So that's really the issue, rather than failings.
Okay, so the A5 judgment, which is ongoing through the courts, that's delaying procurement, obviously in relation to the A5, but there's a knock-on
Because it would have a
effect for
knock-on impact on other
every other
major
major roads
projects.
projects. Which major roads projects are now not able to proceed based on the A5?
I would need to come back with the detail of those.
So can you give us a detailed list of which roads projects, major roads
we'll come back
projects,
with
which
the
we're all
detail.
very keen to see delivered, cannot proceed because of the A5 judgment? And what the timelines are, the likely timelines are for that actually
Yeah,
coming to
and again, it'll depend on the outcome.
completion.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all for me. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Justin. Just before I bring Cal in, who's next, just picking up on a point that you there made, Peter, around ageing stock, around the trains, and it's sort of, I'm going to link it into something else that was on the evidence. I think it was last week we had CTA in here, Community Transport Did we? Or how did you guys in? You were here.
Yeah, yeah.
It's still going to be a bit blurry for me, but we were
so much I thought it'd come back.
Well, it's such a friendly committee. I mean, departmental officials are always very welcome. But there was a point made about sort of age. I think there was a point made about aging stock and CTA. They move people around in buses. I mean, they move people around in a range of ways, but certainly they move around in buses. And I've had some correspondence with them saying that their fleet's getting very old. A little bit like your train analogy, that we have an aging fleet. And in terms of the bid process for monitoring, is obviously ALBs fit into that. Is there any capacity within how DFI put these together that they take in bids from non-ALBs? I mean, is there a route map for other people to write in? Let's take CTA and their minibuses. I mean, can they write in and say, actually, like our trains, our buses are aging. If you're bidding for capital, nothing in the region of 113 million, but we might take 75,000 and replace 3 buses. Does that happen, or can that happen?
The current process, and maybe Susan will correct me wrong, at the minute, no, that there has been occasions where there's a specific pilot project where the department sought bids from community transport for new vehicles.
Not necessarily community transport. I'm using that as an example, but I accept
well,
that.
That's
Yeah.
one I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
Chair. But on the way the department allocates grants to community transport, they bid for a grant. It is resource. That mechanism doesn't allow for capital bids.
Yeah.
I think what we were giving evidence to the committee last week, as part of the review in the community transport, one of the issues that's been raised from the community transport sector is the terms of their fleet are aging. How can they secure capital funding for that? We have the issue identified, not sure what the solution is, and that's part of the process we're going through in terms of how we can consider that. But as far as I'm aware at this minute in time, we wouldn't accept a bid from community transport for capital funding. We would accept it for resource, but not capital.
Susan, could they accept it? Could the department accept it for capital funding along the lines that Peter sort of suggested there?
Well, I suppose Minister could consider any bids that are put to her, but I suppose in terms of the grant process, it's usually there's a certain amount and we go out and we look for calls within that as part of grant funding, and
Yeah.
that's the way that approach would work.
Staying with the CTA example that Peter used there, so obviously they can't apply for, they only apply for a resource. So they have sort of aging stock. Oh, it's getting really old, like our trains. This sort of thing comes along. Massive capital bid in here. Is this, can organisations like that work alongside DFI but aren't ALBs? I mean, is there any mechanism there to say this given the pure size of these figures, that there's a mechanism there that they could write into you folks and say, look, actually, here's a very specific issue that we have here. Is there anything you can do about it?
So we would need to have a grant scheme, so it would need to be open, it would need to be fair across the piece. So again, in that situation, if we were minded to do that, it would have to be an open call.
Open call, got it.
That's the way it would have to work as a grant scheme.
Absolutely fine. That's brilliant, Susan. Thank you. Cahill?
Thank you, Chair, and thanks very much for the presentation. Cindy, just to yourself, really, don't go too far down the Moy Road just yet. Don't want you to get out of the constituency, but
It's not far to get out of the division, okay, yeah.
the issue for us, obviously, we're firefighting each time this year, like any other year, slightly different in terms of monitoring. See, in terms of your programmes, I mean, clearly there's 3 monitoring rounds. This time is slightly different. The challenge you have, because we know as MLAs, we see loads of work being done between January and the end of the financial year, most of us driving the roads. The challenge you have this time round in terms of, because I'm sure there's programmes, and I know you said you had contractual arrangements, those 6 or 7 week programmes, they're questionable now where you can do them or not. That's the main.
Yeah, certainly. As I said, we will have to be selective on the type of projects that we choose, because obviously, we haven't got the time basically to go in and do the likes of the urban moor schemes. I'm thinking about Downpatrick. We did last year. We did a lot of work, and we ended up reducting a lot of Downpatrick. We were 6 months working nights in Downpatrick. We just don't have that time. So we will have to look at those projects, which essentially will minimise the preparatory type of work that we'll do. Obviously, you will always have some sort of curbing and some drainage. So proving the drainage, making sure that the curbing and the infrastructure is adequate, and then looking at then delivering the carriageway resurfacing and reconstruction type work. So it'll probably be more heavily focused on the carriageway type work, and that lends itself to, yes, you can do, you know, the likes of the Moy Road, which is your trunk road network, but you also can do a lot of your more rural distributor type roads. I'm thinking about in Southern Division the likes of Money Lane, Castlewellan. So there's a number of routes that you can do as well, but we also have to be very conscious of the weather as well. So where you may have in theory 12 weeks, you have to allow it in that you will get times that will not be appropriate to do the type of work that we will be delivering, you know. So we have to factor that in as well. As I say, be very selective in the type of projects, and also look to see right across, not just in Southern Division, right across the divisions, where those teams are and where those resources lie. And if we have, you know, we will have to go, depending on the outcome, speak very candidly with our contracting resources as well to see what commitments they have and what actually that they can do as well. But obviously, if you focus it more on the carriageway type delivery, it's this very specialist, and you know our contracting industry is quite efficient and can deliver. You know, we can spend 600,000 over 2 weekends if that's what you want to do.
No, Hans, I only asked in the context because it's a conversation all the time. We had it earlier on about roads and roads. The other question I want to ask, and I mean, there's been a lot of talk about over planning, which is good enough terminology, and you explained about it. They clearly, and it hasn't been mentioned yet, the multi-year budget is a big issue. Your views on it, I mean, I'm not saying it would overshadow the over planning issue, but I mean, like, you know, if we go down that piece where it's multi-year, because we are firefighting every time. When we get money, we can spend it, especially shovel-ready projects and all that. They're just.
Yeah,
So your views on just on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and we have been, you know, prepping information in relation to a multi-year budget, working towards 4 years for capital, which will help to give some certainty, particularly for the structural maintenance, to try and make sure that that's managed appropriately across a 4-year period, rather than just looking at this year-to-year budget position. Helps contractors as well, you know, so it helps everyone for planning.
You know, some security to the industry and everybody work that. All right, Chair, thank you very much.
No problems, Carol. Folks, I haven't had any other indications, look, it just remains for me to thank you very much for coming along and giving your evidence this afternoon, we're still probably this morning, are we still this morning? And we might follow up with some additional questions or information that we require, but apart from that, safe journey home.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All the best. Bye-bye.
There was a few bits and pieces, perhaps just in terms of additional evidence that we were going to seek from the department in terms of some of the questioning. Michael, is there any particulars that you sort of picked up that we require?
Just that officials had said that the start date for the Ballinhinch bypass, and there was questions around the road projects that are waiting on the A5 judgment. So the percentage of those affected, number of contractors involved, and then actually which specific road projects as well came up. I think you were satisfied with the UOB's definitions?
Yep.
In the end? So
yeah, it was.
We'll not pursue
no,
that.
not pursue that.
If members are happy with that.
Seem to be made up anyway. That's fine. Our members agreed that we write to the department to seek that additional information.
Yep.
Brilliant. That's okay. Just to check, has anyone got anything else that they missed on the way through there? Everyone happy? Okay, fine. That takes us on to item 8, which is the Road Noise Action Plan, notification of consultation from the department, and there is written evidence at page 219, which is a notification of consultation, and at page 222, Annex A, the Draft Road Noise Action Plan Round 4. And I just require at this point, unless anyone's got anything that they want to raise on this, just committee agreement to schedule an evidence session on the consultation at a future date in the forward work programme upon conclusion of the consultation, but before any decision or any policy option is taken by the Minister. Do I have committee agreement to do that? Okay. The next item is the item 9, which is the Water, Sustainable Drainage and Flood Management Bill. I take members to page 293, which is a response from the Woodland Trust, and at page 295, which is a response from TO. I just need to seek committee agreement to publish the responses in the meeting folder. Are members agreed? Agreed. Okay. Just to make also members aware that the call for evidence ends on the 9th of December, and a summary of evidence provided to date will be at the next meeting. So just again, for anyone who is listening to this, and probably to try and get themselves over to sleep, as this is just an oral recording at night. If you are a stakeholder who wishes to feed into this committee's call for evidence, you have until the 9th of December to get that in. Okay. Item 10 is SR 2025/180, the Belvoir Road, Belfast Stopping Up Order, Northern Ireland 2025. It is on pages 297 to 303 for members. Note the rule is subject to negative resolution, and just to let members know that the purpose of the rule is to stop up 2 lengths of the Belvoir Road in Belfast. The rule is to come into operation on the 21st of January 2025. To let members know that the committee considered this proposal for the SR at its meeting of the 12th of November 2025 and was content. The examiner statutory rules has reported on the rule and has no comment to make. Are members content with this SR?
Content.
That the Committee for Infrastructure has considered SR 2025/180, the Belvoir Road, Belfast Stopping Up Order, Northern Ireland 2025, and has no objection to the rule. Item 11 is SL1, the U5390 Church Hill, Jonesborough Abandonment Order, Northern Ireland 2025. This is on pages 305 to 326 of members' packs. The rule is subject to negative resolution. Just to make members aware that the committee did consider this at its meeting on the 1st of October 2025, but in response to some issues raised by Mr. McNulty, it subsequently wrote to the department for a response. Copies of that departmental response are included in the members' packs. Just to remind members of the context of this rule will abandon an area of 21 square metres of superseded road at Churchill, Jonesborough, located at a point 62 metres northeast of its junction with the Churchill Road. The property at number 18 Churchill, Jonesborough, was acquired by the department in 2004 in order to facilitate the construction of the A1-N1 link road. The property, along with the land at this location, has now been declared surplus to the department's requirements. However, it contains a small portion of the superseded road at Churchill, which requires it to be abandoned before disposal can proceed. Following the abandonment, the land will be disposed of in accordance with the statutory procedures of the disposal of government-owned land. Just need to inform members that having received these responses, the committee will need to determine whether it is content with the proposal of the SR. And are members content with the proposal for the SR? Okay. We are content.
There's a shaking head.
We are not content. We were near content. Justin, do you want to raise anything, or do you want to sort of say you want your objections noted, or?
I want no objection noted. Just I can't, in good conscience, allow this to pass, given the concerns of the resident, the neighbouring home.
No, I understand that. Are you content to let it through with your objections being noted? You're not going to ruin it. We're 3 weeks out of Christmas, Justin, with a vote here. You're gonna, what do you want to do? You're happy to have your objection noted?
I want an objection noted in the most strongest possible form.
I'm sure we can do that. Happy enough? Okay, brilliant. That takes us on to SL, item 12, which is SL1, the Parking Places Disabled Persons Vehicle Amendment Number 6 Order, Northern Ireland 2025, revised. It is at page 328 of your pack, and you will see the SL1. This rule is not subject to assembly procedure. I need to inform members that the proposal of the rule was considered at the committee meeting on the 26th of November 2025. It was noted that the proposal did not contain the locations of the proposed changes, and the committee agreed to write to the department seeking clarification on these. The department subsequently provided the committee with the revised SL1, which includes the location affected. Well done, the department. Are members now content with the proposal for the SR? Okay. That is fine. Takes us on to item 13, which is an SR not subject to assembly procedure. And I just need to advise member that there's one SR that is not subject to assembly proceedings, that is not requiring to be laid. It is at page 333 of the meeting pack, and is SR 2025/186, the road speed limit number 4 order, Northern Ireland 2025. Just need to remind members that the committee noted the proposals for these rules at its meeting on the 19th of November, and are members content with these SRs? Okay. That takes us on to the forward work programme. It is on table papers at page 10, and I'll take any comments if anyone has any, but notwithstanding that, I just need to seek committee agreement that we proceed with the evidence sessions as scheduled in the forward work programme, subsequent to any decisions taken today. Are members content? And that takes us on to item 15, which is any other business. Do members have any AOB that they wish to raise?
Chair, could I just say one thing?
You can.
It's my error, but actually the call for evidence closing is today, today's date. But there may be one or two people who would like to still submit evidence. Are members content that we still receive that as evidence beyond the call for evidence date?
Okay, so that takes us on to the date, time and location of next meeting. I need committee agreement for the next meeting to take place at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, the 10th of December, in room 29. Playing back on home turf in Parliament Buildings. Our committee agreed. In that case, I will adjourn the meeting.